I found it interesting when the ugly duckling saw his reflection.
Hi readers! Welcome back to Pojok Buku Season 2 SDH HV Episode 1. Yay! Today we're going to start this new episode with a new special guest, and she is the only one,
Irene Wohon,
Irene Wohon from grade
5A.
Yes. We're so thankful for Irene. Thank you, Irene, for giving us your availability to share about this book, right? Yeah. So, readers, today we're going to review this book, The Ugly Duckling. So, this book is available in SDH library. So, for you, if you're students, come to our library and read this book. This is such a recommendation. Before we're going to review this book, may I ask you some questions?
Sure, why not?
Okay. I wonder, really, do you normally come to library and read books?
Usually if I have time at break time or lunchtime, I will.
Okay, wow, that's good. Since when did you start to read books?
I can't remember when, but at this library, maybe since I started elementary school, from maybe grade 2
Grade
or 1.
All right. I'm happy you're going to share about The Ugly Duckling because this is also one of my favorite books. My favorite stories too. So, can you please tell us why do you choose to review this book?
I choose to review this book because, again, it's one of my favorite books in this library, and I can relate to the story about the ugly duckling too.
Right. Well, at the first time I read this book, I also find there are many things we can relate, right? Especially nowadays, about identity. What do you think? Do you think this book is also about identity, or do you think about other things? What do you think the main idea of this book?
Of course, the main is about identity, about the ugly duckling, especially, and about how the ugly duckling feels at first and how he feels at the end.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice. So what are the things that you found interesting from this book?
First of all, I found it interesting when the ugly duckling hatched from their egg. The ugly duckling is a little bit different than the other newborn ducklings, and the ugly duckling hid once he saw the other swans. And lastly, I found it interesting when the ugly duckling saw his reflection and saw that he is actually a beautiful swan and realized his own identity.
Right. Um, Before you mentioned, um, in this book, the ugly duckling was hiding from the swans when he saw the swans, he hid, and then why? Why did you find it interesting though?
Because on the first reason, I said that he looked a little bit different than the other newborn ducklings. He looked a little bit bigger, and on the willow on the book is a little bit smaller, and maybe the swan can see through the willow that the ugly duckling was hiding there, and the ugly duckling didn't realize that he was a little bit bigger than the willow that he was hiding in.
Right. Yeah. That's actually very interesting too because the ugly duckling realized he was different from the other ducks, right? But he didn't realize he's actually at the same time different, especially in his appearance, especially is his body size, right? It's it's interesting knowing that he knew he was different, and at the same time, he didn't know he actually that different. And yeah, I think that from the story, from the part that you said he hid um, because he saw the swans. Yeah, that's explaining a lot how he felt that he was really different from the other ducks. And what else can you share again? The things that you found interesting other than he hid from the swans, and then
Lastly, I found it interesting when the ugly duckling saw his reflection on some pond that he was actually a beautiful swan at the end. And even though he is different than the other ducklings at the start, he doesn't actually belong there. He belongs with the other swans.
yeah, right. He finally found his true identity, so it's interesting. Yes. Um, from the story or from this book, The Ugly Duckling, is there any like specific things that you have learned from it?
I've learned that we should never feel ashamed for being different with others because God has created us in His own image, and we should be proud instead of feeling bad or ashamed of it.
Well, actually, that is very, very deep, Irene, because not many people um, actually realize that we are all created in God's image and we are all God's masterpiece. We are made beautifully and wonderfully by God, and we should embrace what God has created us, right? And this book is such a good reminder. I agree with you because at first the duckling was insecure, like kind of ashamed of who he was. But then when once he found his identity, he didn't realize. That's good. Is there anything else that you learned from this book?
It is important for us to know that we are created in God's image because we are created in unique and different than the others. Even though God created us in that way, He also created others with that way. Like it's a different thing. So
Like unique.
yeah, so um, if we feel different, just always remember that God created us in different ways with the others.
Right, yes. Sometimes like we feel ashamed or like kind of insecure with ourselves because we keep comparing ourselves with others, right?
Yeah.
And but even though like we're different with others, knowing that we are like sometimes some people just feel like they are like superior, right? Right, like more than other people's. But even though we have like that thinking, we should change that because everyone is very precious and unique. I really like that. That's such a good point. You said that you relate a lot to the story. Can you like share some experience of yours that once you kind of like have that, I don't know, maybe identity issue, maybe like when you're struggling to embrace your identity. Is there any time when you or a moment you experience that?
There's some times, but I can hardly remember actually because it has been such a long time. Um, I have been going out until other than going to school, of course. But sometimes and somehow I feel different than others, especially with my appearance. But I come to know that even though we are different, we are still God's image and we are God's followers. It and even though we are different with others, there's always a meaning God created us that way.
Right. I remember when I was younger, I felt kind of like different with my friends. Some of my friends, like even when I compare myself to them, we are like very different, right? Some people have like this face feature that I envy of. Even until today, when like I kind of forget who I really am and I didn't find my identity like in Christ, in God, it will bring me down. So that is such a good thing that you brought up this issue, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So readers, wow, even though it's such a short discussion, but I feel like this is very meaningful, right? We talk a lot about identity from, especially from this book, The Ugly Duckling. And I hope that when you read this book later on, you also find like lots of insights more and more about identity. And just like what Irene shared to us, we are all created uniquely by God. We are created in God's own image, meaning that we are beautiful. We are all that good and wonderful, so we should embrace that. And that's all for today's episode. I hope you enjoy that. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Irene, thank you so much for giving us your time. May we can have another discussion in another episode. Thank you, readers. Bye, readers.
Bye, leaders!